There he is.
All right, we're live. Woo!
Greetings from Tarzana, the lost city here in California.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where we talked earlier. Like I'm in Chicago and you're in California, but we're hanging out. So
Yeah, so zZounds, thanks for having me aboard the party today. Here we are, springtime in LA, not so bad. At my studio, Mix LA, always working.
yeah, I can finally say the same about Chicago right now. The weather's not too bad. It's like I can there's you can see green on the ground, and you don't have to wear a million layers to go outside anymore. So I'm grateful for
So it's
that,
all
man.
good, all good. Focusing on what we can do and not worried about what we can't do.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, just want to say thanks again for joining us here, and popping in and talking about some gear, talk about some engineering, and just kind of whatever's on top of your mind. So, yeah, let's. You want to go ahead and start and talk about some of the monitors or the Bluey?
Well, I can definitely talk about the product line. The simple fact of it is that, I focus on what I know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't try to, do stuff that's outside of my world. I focus on what I use every day. I focus on what I'm an expert at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I couldn't open a restaurant. I just want to show up and order the meal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get me really involved in making guitar amps or heads or anything, but I'll focus on, the white cone and the black box, right? Which is the CLA10s, which continues, what it does is it continues an era of speaker that's unavailable to purchase new, right? Um, the reason I went down the road there is simple. Okay, the um, the original, white cone, the black box, can't buy them. So all my friends go to eBay, buy used ones. They sound different. The woofers, the tweeters are soggy, or dark, or they've been manhandled. So I partnered up with John Haber and Avantone Pro, and voila, we have the CLA10s. And then it was my idea with them to come out with the CLA10 actives because we live in an active world. Let's just be honest. The original CLA10s, fulfill the dream of having that reference speaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the actives fulfill the dream of now people with just a laptop and maybe an SSL2 or something as their, you know, interface, or the new Revolution as their interface. Just want a powered speaker controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have that. The difference with the actives is that it took us a while to find the right amp. I know I have them at home, and they are super punchy and super loud and don't fold like a lot of the, digital amps that come with power speakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it had to pass a CLA test to have the powered versions, which took the longest to get that right. So, and I did add a little throwback, a little tip the hat to Bob Clearmount with the variable tissue paper control, which lets you, turn the treble down, lets you darken them, which actually comes in handy because here's the thing: when you buy a brand new box of CLA10s, I think you need to like break them in, which means run some pink noise through them, set them up, run some noise through them, let them do that for a couple of days, so it takes the freshness down and softens them a little bit because they're going to be slightly brighter than a vintage pair of, a vintage pair of tens. So we're happy with the complete outcome of the situation. Plus, they're priced at the right price point. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they're priced just to cover what it costs to make these things. You know, the CLA10s and the CLA10 actives. So I really just want to get them on on people's desks. Now, no one can sit and say, "Hey, Chris, I don't know about the sound of these speakers." I said, "Look, it ain't about the sound, okay? It's about a simple fact. The CLA10s are the sound of hits, okay? The white cone and the black box is the sound of hits. Period. How many songs been mixed through those speakers, through the black cone and the white cone and the black box? More hits than any other speaker, than all those speakers combined by 10 at least. So the simple fact, the simple reality of it is that, from the onset of, the white speaker and the black box to now, the most hit records of all time are mixed through those as a reference. So whether you like them or not, they're a reference speaker, and there's something you need to have, because the opposite of what comes out of those is what becomes the way your mix sounds. So we all know that by the history of the speakers. So I got behind it because what? I've been sitting in front of them my whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the powered ones are a nice bonus, a nice add to that. So that solves that whole problem. So it's not like I just came out with a speaker. No, I just wanted a continuous speaker that worked, right? So boom, CLA10s, CLA10 actives, priced for anybody. Look, there's a lot of esoteric powered speakers out there that cost a lot of money. We're not, it's not fair. It's not fair just because I slap a CLA on it that I add $1,000 to a box, right? Or $500. That makes me look freaking greedy.
Yeah.
No, when the whole pricing concept, I said, how cheap can we sell these? I want everyone to have a chance to get them. Okay, so let's move forward to the other piece of hardware made right there by Black Lion Audio in Chicago. Okay, by those team of magicians. Okay, the Black Lion Bluey. Okay, right now you can't see it in the shot here unless I move my desk. Let's see. Well, the other way. Okay, you see all those Blueys right there in the picture?
Oh, there we go.
All right. So Bluey number one right here. Okay, the number one, the old number one. Um, let's leave it tilted for you. Bluey number one to me is the Magic Bluey. Okay, these are 1960s compressors. Okay, these all have a different sound to them, right? But this particular one has been modified. It's got some voodoo, it's got some magic, and it's seen every vocal on every mix I've done for the last 1,000 years.
Yeah, that's saying something right there.
I mean, without a doubt, it's seen vocals on 12 to 13,000 mixes. Okay, that's everybody. Okay, so you name it. If I've had my hands on it, it's gone through there. So it's proved itself here. So we took that piece out of the rack. We sat on the table for a couple of weeks, and they went through it wire by wire, part by part, measured everything very carefully. Okay, with me watching a lot of the time, because I said, look, if we're gonna make a Black Lion Bluey, let's make sure we make it right. So,
Yeah.
So it pretty much clones that. Now, the only thing you're going to see different on the Black Lion Bluey is I put the mix knob on there, the wet dry knob, because we live in the wet dry world all of a sudden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to have the wet dry. I thought it would make it be different. It's almost like, it just makes it odd. It makes it stand out, right? And the only thing different about it is the ballistics of the VU meter aren't going to be as fast as the original UA meter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we reversed the attacker release. We reversed one of them to throw you off because people are so used to it all being one way. But to be honest with you, it's the prototype is sitting right here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Outside of the view, it's, you know what it is? It's on my vocal chain. Okay. I have a Heritage HA73 going right to the prototype Bluey, right to tape. What's tape? What is tape, dude? What's tape?
Tape? I don't know. Never heard
Tape.
of such a thing.
For the last time, no.
What's tape?
Yes.
There we
Okay.
go.
Well, it's that right to the Pro Tools rig. So it's in use. So look, again, priced for purchase because you can't replace these things. So again, we priced it so everyone get their hands on it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Okay. It makes no sense to come out with a new piece of hardware that's expensive. That's too expensive. What's the point? I mean, okay, what am I going to do? Copy a Fairchild and sell that for 10,000, right? Or 15,000? No. How about copy a Fairchild and sell it for 19.99 because it's a big thing, right? You
Mm-hmm.
follow what I'm saying? Um, so that was my intention. So those two different pieces of hardware. Now, obviously, you guys know that with Waves, I have a ton of software, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You use any of my plugins, John?
I don't, but I have a ton of friends who swear by them, and they say
Okay.
they've never done a mix without your plugins. So I know about them. But I'm more of the guitarist that's like, hey, can you just make me sound good, rather than making myself sound good. So
CLA guitar, CLA guitar. Look, and my partnership with STL Tones with Howard Benson. That's a great guitar sound. Great
mm-hmm.
guitar plug-in. Um, and even today, not to plug, but even today with Waves, we are announcing a very limited time CLA everything bundle, which means everything I make for Waves is one click away from buying today as a limited time bundle, a limited time package, right? And it's CLA everything for now, right? Because I have plenty of things in the works, but a big problem that people have is like they can't find it all in one place.
Yeah.
I obviously your dog is chewing a guitar in the background. Kidding.
She actually
Obviously,
did chew a guitar case. I'm not gonna lie. I came home and my Les Paul was a little bit gnawed on. So, but I kept her.
now back in the '80s, okay, back in the '80s, I had a dog named Montana, and he went into my briefcase and started chewing up master DAT tapes.
Oh man, I bet those tasted good.
But I see him with a DAT in his mouth, and I'm like, dude, you know.
Yep.
So I had to pull it out of his mouth and kind of put it together. But since it was at the very beginning of the DAT, it hadn't got to the song yet. So he's chewing on it. But I had to actually take the little reels out and put them in a new DAT.
He's just trimming it.
He's trimming it. But he chewed up a few television remotes. I realized that okay, well, leave the DATs away from him.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, the products are fun. Look, there's plenty of products on the way, but I'm just trying to make the tools for the users. Trust me, if I can make some modifications to Pro Tools, but I don't know how quick they're going to be to accept my input on making some mods to Pro Tools. So I'd love to help there because
Yeah.
we live in a world of hoarders with the audio, so
Oh, dude.
stuff everywhere.
It's like I can't stop buying stuff. But I think that the whole mindset that you have going into your gear, and the gear that you put your name on, and the gear that you invest your time into help designing and help getting to the people. I mean, and with the plugins too. I mean, you're really, I think you're looked at as someone that just really wants to help the community of engineers and producers. Have you seen, like, especially with COVID too? I mean, there's a lot of people that are kind of dipping their feet into like the engineer world. Like, how are you stoked about that, or is it kind of like, oh man, there's like all these producers out there now, and it's watering down something, or kind of what's your take on that?
Well, there's two ways to look at this stuff. Okay, you can look at by creating plugins and by coming out with the gear. What are you doing? You're creating your own demise, right? Because you're giving out, you're selling all the tools of how you work, right?
Yeah.
I don't look at it this way. I really look at I want to share the best tools I can at the best prices, so everyone's got a shot. Because you
Yeah.
know what? The only people win are the people that connect with the artist in a way they like. I mean, look, you can have 20 guys, 20 people mixing, 20 great people mixing, but the artist is only going to pick one. So may the best person win, right? And if it makes more competition, so be it. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, I like to teach. I want to help. I want to come up with tools for people that can't afford this stuff. Look behind me. This is just all stuff I've purchased because all this outboard gear adds character, right? Compressors, EQ, I mean, mostly limiters, compressors, that all adds character to your mix. The console adds character. It all adds sound, okay? I don't really believe in ditching all this and just going to plugins. Why? Okay. For me, I don't have to. Okay. But if you're in your home on your laptop, it's nice to know that you can get your hands on some CLA plugins or whatever plugins you use. It's going to give you this kind of atmosphere, this kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And, you know, as we move forward, we're actually getting that. Okay. Now, there's no plugin for this, right? Oh, there's no plugin that's going to replace. How about a Strat, a Rosewood Strat with a maple neck, stock from the factory? You know, so we can have plugins that help this, okay, enhance this. It's not going to, it's not going to eliminate this. This is like another instrument, okay?
Yeah.
It creates sound, it creates tone. We can't really eliminate it, okay? Sure, most people can't have it in their house, but this back. My guitars are all up in the rack. This way they don't sprout legs or wings. You can see up there, there's my Phil X SG up there. Yeah, I mean, look, with the products and all that, John, and the outboard gear, it's about plugins or emulations, and they're getting better and better. And some of them are actually better than the hardware because they just do something different. I mean,
yeah,
there's some plugins right now, you know, some of the reverbs, delays, distortion, they do different stuff that, you know, the hardware doesn't do. But still, it's apples and oranges, okay? It's what your ear says works for the record. Like Mike Pre's, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the whole Mike Pre world has gotten better and better. Okay. Yeah. Who doesn't want a rack of 24 1073s, brand new, that work perfectly with no, right? Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Well, give me a rack of 24, 24 Heritage Audios. I'm good. Okay. They don't even have to be the vertical. They don't have to be like the console. Just give me 24 of those. I know they're brand new. I know the guy that builds them. I know they sound good. Okay. So give me what works. All right. Sure. Who doesn't want a pair of 251s, a pair of 47s, C12s? Run down the list. Who doesn't want a couple of Fairchilds?
Yeah.
All right. You know, when I was little, I dug a couple of Fairchilds out of the trash in Englewood. When I worked at Sugar Hill, there was a whole bin of Fairchilds, like 6 of them, six
Wow.
670s. I pulled out 4 that had tubes in them because I figured that's what made them work, and I kept them. I ended up trading one to the Bee Gees for some weed when I mixed Robin's record in the 80s. Because you want that thing? You want that? Yeah, it was fair, right? Sure. I mean, because I said, yeah, I get this really big compressor thing. It weighs like 100 pounds. Oh, Fairchild? Yeah. Goes, wow. Do you use it? He goes, it's just in my basement for my band demos. And so, you know, that's where that one went.
Yeah. So,
But
so I feel like with the outboard gear, it's not necessarily what's better than something else. It's what works for the situation or the sound or you know what you're hearing in your head.
it's that simple, John. My toolbox is set up a certain way. All this gear behind me doesn't change. The settings don't change except for like some delays and reverb, but compressors are all set for their, you know, their gain structure, right? So they're all kind of parked in places where they're going to work. Okay. Certain compressors for me are for vocals, certain are for guitars. They either work or they don't. They're patched in, ready to go. It's just ready to go. Doesn't mean it's always in, right? So every piece of gear I have is put into an appropriate place on the console. So when I'm mixing, it's like, okay, am I using these? Don't need them. Or yeah, that works. Because remember, creating music, if you have a routine, okay, you're able to actually work very, you know, very consistently. Okay. And if you have a great, you're very effectively, very efficiently. So if you always put things in a certain place and you always have the tool set up a certain way, then they can react to the music, right? And you don't have to worry about, oh, I got to move this to there and that to here and this to there. Every time it gets confusing. Okay. And I teach that in my classrooms about how you got to be organized with all this stuff. But yeah, all the gear has its own character.
I love that. It's like, you know, if you're a painter, you know, it's like the different colors that you can, you know, use. And I think I've said this before on a stream when I was talking to Earthquaker devices, because pedals I kind of feel like are similar to outboard gear. They're like little outboard gears.
Exactly.
And you know,
little
you
outboard gears. Yeah.
You turn them on, you turn them off, you A/B them, and you know, you kind of see what works and see what doesn't, and then finally you land on a sound. And you know, a lot of times it's a mix of a bunch of stuff, or maybe it's just something simple you fall back on. And you're like, well, it just worked that way. Do you find that a lot of your gear is kind of the same way?
Yeah, it's like an artist paint box. It's like we have your digital and analog, you know, paint box of all your, you know, paint brushes and paint colors. So you're able to paint. Look, if you're an artist, the more colors you have, the more vivid you can paint. So there's no limitation. I just try not to have any limits and have all this stuff. But I don't sit there chasing every different sound all the time. So
yeah.
As you were mentioning with your pedals, I try to convince my students and convince people creating, if you get a sound, build it in, okay, and make it etched in stone. When I put up the old tapes of, you know, records I've created years ago, you throw the faders up, you open up, you make a session from the audio files, you throw the faders up, it's there, okay, the record's there. You're not depending on an army of plugins to create a sound from DIs and flat recordings, you know. I think we're in a very bad era of documenting, which means, look, you're either documenting or you're engineering, okay? Engineering means you take the raw sounds, you create something from it, and then you record that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're documenting, it's kind of like a live recording where you just got to clean off the mic pre's, you're just documenting it and deal with it later because you don't want to make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want people to make mistakes and make cool sounds, you know, not just put mics up, record all flat. Anybody can do that. That's not engineering, okay? That's documenting. It's like taking a picture.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, going back to the gear, you know, what you said earlier is making things that are, you know, can be available for anyone. And it's like, sometimes you can't, you know, if something's out of reach, how can you know if that's the sound you need or that's the sound you want? And especially going back to the fact that the monitors are active now, you know, a lot of home studios, sometimes they just want to throw some monitors on their desk and with their, you know, little interface and get to work. So, I mean, I think it's a great thing.
I didn't mention the fact that we make power amps, the CLA200 and the CLA100. The CLA200's got like 1.21 gigawatts of old 80s power, right? It's a massive power amp and it's cheap. So we're selling so many power amps because you still need power amps for Q systems and whatever, you know. But if you had the room in your studio, CLA10s with a CLA200, it's going to have a lot of punch. Okay. If you don't have the ability to have a giant power amp racked up and all that, then get the CLA10As. And the CLA100's really set up to run a small pair of passive monitors or a headphone system. Because look, I'm buying 30-year-old power amps, right? Because they have a sound. So yeah, I didn't mention, but the power amps become really important too. So if you have the room, great. But
yeah,
I have like 8 of them hooked up for all my speakers and for all the headphones because I want a headphone system that's got a lot of headroom. Okay. So it's really clean. Look, some singers like it pretty loud. And if a drummer's playing and he's got like the Vic Firth headphones on, it's got to be punchy. It's got to have a lot of headroom, you know. I don't really believe in the Hearback and these other boxes that are like network powered. I don't know. They all sound pretty small to me. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to modify and get a better one. But I came from the world that it was power amp, headphone, QSEN, the punchiest you can get.
Yeah.
So, the right tools for the right job.
Definitely. And I think you mentioned this when we were kind of getting ready for the stream. There's vintage gear and then there's new gear. And having the new gear, you kind of eliminate some of the stress of like something going wrong or something not sounding right. So was that like an approach you took, to your gear that you have is to not necessarily recreate, but, kind of clone something that was super part of your workflow and things like that, but make it reliable and new components and things like that.
Well, that's the thing about the Bluey. I wanted to have a go-to limiter, a go-to compressor to record vocals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was going to give me the sound for the mix right away.
Yeah.
So, if you run it through the Bluey and hammer it pretty good, it's ready to go. Okay. So you're getting the mix sound. Okay. Look, biggest problems I used to have back in the days, you're doing a vocal and you're like, what's that noise? What's that crud? What's that hum? What happened to the mic? What happened? The power supply is freaking making noise. I mean, the limiter's starting to sound funny. Something's failing, right? In the middle of the take, or it's distorting or something bad, not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it'd be like that with drums. You got the old Neves on the drums, it's rocking. Then you're like, wait, halfway through the take, what's that sound? What's that distort? Oh, what's that intermittency? What the hell is that? I can't fix that.
And it throws off the vibe and, kind of puts a speed bump in the workflow.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's just, to me, it's just a method, It's like some of these vintage old consoles, like you got to decide what you're going to put up with. I mean, yeah, some of them are maintained amazingly, but if you think you're going to walk into a vintage Neve tracking room and use all the EQs and all the mic pre's, good luck having them all work, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be restricted, okay, by that. So, if I could have a brand new Heritage Audio console for that Neve tracking, but why? Now I have a brand new Origin console, which is going to give me the same concept, right? So it's a great piece of gear to have. Anybody can afford, well, not anybody, but, people are going to build a studio kit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think more and more people are, getting into recording and engineering and things at their home that may be wanting to move up and into like a studio space or something like that. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't, a vintage Neve console, I mean, how much is that going to run you? Like a lot.
But look, yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. People lust after it. Look, it's all depends on your financial. But look, if it was up to me, you go buy a new Origin. It's 32 channels. You know what I'm saying? It's actually 64, so it's an inline console, right? And when you're running Pro Tools, you get this guy. You got your it's right in the stand next to my rig here.
Yeah.
You get the UF8, so you have your controller for Pro Tools. You got your console. I mean, the thing that's nice about the Origin, I think it's like 50 grand. Okay, and you just go right. You can just plug all your stuff up, EQ on the way to tape, monitor. It's really set up as a really simple for a band that has a situation, right? A band that has a little warehouse space and a little control room. They have their Origin, their speakers. Everybody's plugged in. The drums have whatever, 16, 24 mics on it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You use the whole thing. You can use all 32 inputs for your tracking. Okay? And you're rocking. I mean, to me, that's the way to go. And I want bands to be creative. So okay, maybe 16 modules are just for the drums, and then you have 16 for just guitars, acoustic guitar, piano, keys. Everything's ready to go. It's like, okay, we're adding keyboards. Boom, just arm those two tracks. Okay, bring them in on inputs 11 and 12, 13 and 14. You understand what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah,
so,
100%. I mean, I I'm not an engineer by any means, but I have a little home studio and things, and my first goal, with acquiring some of this gear was to make sure that I could have everything kind of at my disposal at a touch of a button if I wanted to, like if an idea popped up. So, I've kind of got like, splitters and, things going to my amp and going to EI and things like that. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm playing through my tube amp, I want to be able to, if I come up with a good riff, and, from my opinion, probably nobody else's, and I'm like, I want to record that, I can just record it. So I think the importance of having things ready to go is super important for the musician, but also important for the engineer too, to kind of just keep that vibe going and keep that, the creativity flowing.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I started, a really proper setup was a band could be sitting around working on ideas, and they cut a track, and then the drummer's like, "Oh, let me change the bridge." Boom, go out, open up his tracks, go punch in your drums. Bass player's like, "Yeah, I got a better riff for the verse." Boom, open your faders, go ahead. Guitar player's like, "Hey, let me double that. Oh, let me put the acoustic on it. Hey, I got a slide part. Okay, let me open up those channels." And I think that it's all about workflow, and that creativity. Creativity has a speed limit, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
creativity shouldn't have a speed limit. The only speed limit is how quick you can get it ready to go, right? So, I try to teach my students about conquering that aspect, and being able to do that. And it's fun. Look, whether you have an SSL2 and a laptop, okay, and a bunch of digital, a bunch of instruments on your rig, whatever it takes, whatever the situation takes to make it easy. I mean, Jesus, right now, there's so many options to setting up a rig for yourself, really.
Yeah,
It's really good.
definitely. And I think too, it's like I've been in studios where there's been a lot of time just sitting around waiting for things to be set up, and by that time you're like, I don't even want to record, or something like that. So I think it's great that the approach of making things simple and accessible to musicians is definitely something other engineers can learn from. To be able to foster that creativity for the artist and everything. So, yeah, man, I think it's great. I want to come record with you. I'll send you some of my rap songs about dinosaurs or something that I do in my
There you
spare
go.
time.
Well, mostly what I do is mix
Yeah.
because I like the end result. Now, when I'm engineering, if I'm not producing, I'm really not interested. Okay, because I'm really not going to go be an engineer for hire because I'm too opinionated. I'm
Yeah.
going to open my mouth. I'm going to say something, and if I don't, if I think that my opinion's going to help you, I will. Now, look, it doesn't matter. You know what? It doesn't matter if it's the Rolling Stones. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what band it is. I'm going to open my mouth and say something about what you're doing because I can't help myself. So I have to have some kind of involvement, aside from just getting sounds, right? Um, and I think the creative thing is that. Um, and I think for people starting out, whether it's Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper or whatever, look, I think a lot of it's Pro Tools, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the music creators are starting out with that. And one of the big problems they run into is how messy it gets so fast.
Yeah.
And as someone who's creating a lot more now with that, I'm realizing I have to create shortcuts for that, right? Um, and think about ways to make it not be such a disaster, right? Because it can be. I mean, just the sessions I get that I thought were cleaned up are a mess. So, so I try to teach students to look at this creation process in multiple levels. Okay, so here's an example, John. Here's an example. You're creating a song, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's start here. You're creating a song, and within one day, it's getting pretty messy, right? All the tracks you got piled up, all the ideas you're kind of putting together, all the edits and instrument plugins. So what do? Okay, let's call that song Mean Street. Okay, say, oh, I'm cutting a song called Mean Street, right? So Mean Street, and since it's John, so I would call it Mean Street J plus, which means this is John's session, right? So we call it Mean Street A J plus. That's the name of the session, right? So once you have it in a place like, wow, this is coming together. Okay, you've made a whole bunch of decisions. You have a really great rough going on. Okay, so now you name the session Mean Street B J plus, and you consolidate the best efforts from A. Save a session copy with the best bits of that. Okay, the best bits of that, and then move over to working on Mean Street B, which is going to be less tracks, all cleaned up. Maybe it's a whole bunch of commits. Maybe it's a whole bunch. You can go back to A if you have to rebuild something that's in B. But now all of a sudden B is down to like 12 tracks. All the best of A is here. Okay. You can move forward that and add to it. Okay. Because after a while, it turns into an unmanageable real mess.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, think about you did 24 guitar parts, right? Right. Say you have drums, bass, and 24 guitar parts, right? And they're all in bits and pieces all over the face, here in the verse and all that. And truly, when you're listening, the guitars with your auxes, with your auxes and whatever you end up doing, is only 4 pairs, right? Maybe you have a main rhythm pair, a bridge pair, your solo pair, and maybe all 24 of those bits are 4 pairs, right? Which is just 8 tracks, right? You commit all that, that goes into the B session. Now you're starting to live with all your decisions. So it's like an Italian race car driver. He rips the mirrors off and doesn't look back. So once you start committing, okay, so Mean Street A by John, okay, is the start point. Mean Street B by John may be the cleaned up version of A. And then B starts to get messy because maybe you're piling vocals on, okay? All right. Back in the day, it's a finite number, okay? It's 24 track tape, right? Which is really only 22. So you fill up tape 1. What do you do then? You make a slave, right? Never heard of this terminology, have you? Huh?
I'm shaking my head being like, I know what you're talking about, but I kind of don't know but I'm learning a lot, which is great.
So, okay, what happens in Pro Tools when you've gone past, say, okay, I have 22 audio files. Now what? I want to keep going. You got to make some decisions, or you have to make a B session that shrinks it down so you can keep going, right? So in essence, what we would have to do is cut our basic tracks on reel A, okay? Copy that to reel B, condensed, to the least amount of tracks we can get away with, still having separation from just making a stereo mix, right? Keep going on the B reel. When we run out of the B reel, what do? We take the elements that came from A plus a sub mix of the B stuff, and now we have a C reel. So if you think about that in Pro Tools, is always making decisions to condense it down. You can always go back if you want to reblend something from A or B. Make sense?
Yeah, okay. It does.
When I'm working on a creative session, okay, when it starts to be the Dead Sea Scrolls on there, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. It's so confusing. It's like the first thing I want to do is, okay, it took me 24 tracks of bits and pieces to make this big drum sequencing program. Once I have the balance that I like and I'm happy with it, it's a stereo mix. Boom.
Yeah.
And then I can always go back if I want to, make it less broken out. So I try to teach students to think about creating in sections, okay? Rhythm section, sweetening, vocals, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And making your sessions A, B, C, D, okay? Knowing that you can go back to these original sessions. How about when you're sharing, okay? I find now with the whole COVID disaster that everyone's got their own studio. And I think that's the best idea ever. Okay. Yeah. Every drummer, every guitar player, every gunslinger, okay, every gun for hire out there, you know how you're going to get work, especially from Chris or the other producers that are sitting home with rigs, is have a great drum sound in your house, ready to go. Great guitar sound, ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim Pierce, Phil X, you say Brian Tishy, Victor Indrizio. I mean, Kenny Arnoff, right? You send a file to Kenny, you get drums, you get percussion, and you get a 4-hour conversation. The point I'm making is that we live in a world now where I can make a session, upload it to Dropbox, send a link to anywhere I want. And if I know what I'm looking for, I hire a guy and I just want to see what he does. I
Yeah.
don't want to helicopter it. I don't want to helicopter him.
Yeah.
I want a guy that's going to, that I'll give him a couple of ideas. Say, look, here's the song. Those are guide drums. I want you to use your instinct. If I'm going to tell him how to play, I might as well play it myself. I want him to show me something I wouldn't have thought of. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to send it to the greatest musicians in the world. Okay. And have them send me back the parts. Okay. Way back before you were born in the 80s, we did a song called Sun City, right? It was a benefit about apartheid with Little Steven. So we made like 100 slave reels, which meant we had our A reel. We had all the basic song on an A reel. We made it the least amount we could, and we sent it off to Peter Gabriel. We sent it off to, everybody, to Pete Townsend, to everybody we think, to Bono, to whoever. We sent to Bruce Springsteen. We sent it out to everybody to let them go to town.
Yeah.
Okay. We'd say, hey, Bruce, here's the line, sing the song. We'll pick what lines. You know how We Are the World, everyone's got a different line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was like, let's find out who sings the best lines, right? So imagine sending these tapes around the world, and all these tapes come back, and you got to put it all together.
Yeah.
That's challenging. Now, but right now, it's like a keyboard player, a guitar player, a singer, a background singer, whatever. I work with artists that, you know what, give them a slave reel, let them go with an engineer they want. If they don't want the intimidation of this guy, because maybe I'm a little hard to be around. Maybe you want to be able to do these things on your own. No, but my point is that give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
I would love to see. I would love to see a program or a website that you can log into, and it's like the yellow book of internet musicians, to say that, hey, I'm looking for a bass player, I'm looking for accordion player, that John Robinson to play on it. I'm going to get, Vinny Caliuto. I'm going to get freaking Steve Gadd to play on it. Okay. Well, you send a song to Steve Gadd. If he approves it, you send him the file, right? He may not like what you do. Sorry, John, he may not like it. But if he approves it, say, yeah, I'm good to go on this. So, and you can text him a couple ideas. How cool would that be?
Dude, that sounds amazing, honestly. I feel like I've been in that position where I'm like, man, because there's a lot of music, I want to do where I don't necessarily have like a band formed or anything like that, but, I have song ideas and things like that. And, it's one of those hard things is to, find a drummer. It's always hardest to find a drummer and a bass player. But, I feel like if there's that opportunity to do that, and especially in this day and age, like you said, you upload something to Dropbox, you send them a link, and then boom, they have it. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Obviously, when you're sending music around to musicians, there's going to be a certain mentality of non-disclosure,
Yeah.
which means no sharing, no ripping off, whatever. So there's got to be that involved in it. But think about it. You got a band, right? And everybody plays great. Everybody plays on the record. But there might be a song where the drummer's like, man, I'm playing what serves the song. It's all okay. And I'm in the band. I'm going to play it live. But man, what if I could get Grohl to play on this? What if I could just get Dave on it? And then you send Dave the song and say, look, we'd love you to play on this. Is it even possible? Okay. He's like, you know what? I dig the song, but I got to charge you $2,500 to do a couple of runs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, imagine if we could turn the clock back. Okay, let's get John Bonham to play on it.
Oof.
How about Ringo? I mean, right now,
Yeah.
why can't I just send Ringo an MP3 and say, dude, you in? Send him the file. I mean, how busy is he?
Yeah.
I see him playing these videos with some, with what's his name? Ray Wiley Hubbard, right? Who's this badass Texan dude. So why can't look? There's a certain school of thought where you want to make music, where you want to infuse people from the community. Maybe you're a solo artist and you want to be able to use whoever you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be great to have that option. And then
Yeah.
there's some bands like, little do you know, a lot of the great rock records you hear, okay, had some help from some studio musicians here and there.
Totally.
Okay, there was the Phil X coming in as the gunslinger. You know who Phil X is? You're a guitar player.
Yeah, I know the name.
Phil. Okay. He's up on the stage with Bon Jovi a lot, but he does a lot for me, and he's played on a lot of great records. And Howard Benson produced and I mixed as a gunslinger. I call him a gunslinger because that means he comes in and quietly slays the record. Okay, and unless you look at the credits, you assume the band played on it. And don't get me wrong, the band usually plays all over it, but sometimes the gunslinger's in there to give a song more horsepower, right? And these unsung heroes of music, they're the gunslingers.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of those out there. I learned that early, when I was in a band and, first getting into more professional studios was, at first you're like, oh, no. I don't want anyone on my music. Like it's my music. And then you get to a point where you're like, it's the studio and, the efficiency is really important. And, some people are great live musicians, but they're not great studio musicians. Where that I'm kind of that person where I can go play live, but sometimes, you put the click on and you say go and I get nervous and, got to do the take 100 times. So I think, having those people come in and do that kind of stuff is amazing. And then if you could just do that digitally.
It's not even just for that, John.
Yeah.
It's just you're looking to hear something you wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
Look, I want to hire when the opportunity comes up, I want to hire the best in the world. Why? Because they're going to have an idea I never thought of.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if it makes a great song, it makes a great song. Now, on the other side of that coin, there's the artist soul creation that gives it a sound, that like Billie Eilish or something. Okay, use that example. That gives the sound of somebody in their closet, not seeing daylight for a year and not listening to anything else but their own music. That's all fine and dandy. So there's two sides of it. Mm-hmm. There's input to get ideas, and there's keeping everybody out so your idea doesn't get tainted.
Yeah.
If you see in the very back wall, it's a picture of Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray Vaughan is one of my heroes back there.
Yeah.
I actually played that Strat back in the 80s.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, way.
I used to watch his live videos.
I don't have a picture because somebody took a picture. I don't have it.
Oh, dude. No pic. What do they say? It's not true if there's no picture or whatever. But I believe you.
Well, I mean, it was, he did play an all the James Brown record doing overdubs. And when I bought the guitar, I had the guitar at the studio in the case. And he was playing a Strat. I'm like, hey, you're a Strat guy? Check this one out. He goes, wow, this is nice, clean, completely stock, And he was playing it. And I think he played like one of the rhythms on it, but I ain't got no count, 1985. How many count? I'm like, here you go.
Yeah, where's your iPhone,
dude? Where's that freaking
Instagram?
Where's the one that where was the one that you'd have to turn it, the portable, the disposable ones,
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. I haven't used one of those in a while.
Where's the Kodak?
I think you can still get those like at like pharmacies and stuff. Like the little
they're the crappiest. They're the crappiest ever, yeah.
And now my iPhone's taking better pictures than like a DSLR camera. It's insane. But yeah, man,
Well,
I
the new
think that's
iPhone's
insane.
pretty good. Yeah, the new iPhone's pretty good, so helpful.
But yeah, man, I think I really enjoyed you coming on here and giving your time to talk about your gear, talk about your process, just talk about some of your experiences and just teaching. I can tell you love to teach, and that passion is very evident. And I feel like I learned a lot just being on the receiving end here. So I'm hoping that our viewers learned a lot. And yeah, man, just really appreciate you coming on here. And then
Well,
hopefully we can do this again soon.
I appreciate zZounds having me. What I wanted to share with some of the listeners out here. Here we are, like a year later after the shutdown, and let's do whatever it takes to get live music back on the case. Let's get people to get shots in their arms, whatever it takes. Get your shot. You know what I'm saying? Look, if that's going to save your life, if that's going to make things go back to normal, let's get on board, right? I just want to go to a concert. I want to get everybody back on stage. Every one of those crew guys set up the PA. I want to get the guy selling hot dogs, from sleeping under the bridge to back into an apartment because he's got no job, right?
Yeah.
Every part of the infrastructure in live music and sporting events and all that. Come on, let's go. The summer's coming. Let's get those festivals. Let's get those shows back out there. And look, as I said around a year ago today, I said to all musicians on Facebook, I said, look, let's focus on what we can do and don't worry about what we can't do. Okay. And if you can't do certain things, well, pick up your guitar and write a song. Pick up your keyboard, write a song. If you can't write a song, don't want to write a song, pick up that stack of hard drives of stuff that you made a huge mess with, clean it up, connect with your artist, help people out. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And do something creative with your time. I found that I just don't watch the news. I don't really care unless I smell smoke or the room is shaking. I give really a shit less. And I can't, I can't sit there and go, whoa, there was a riot up the street or they're boarding up windows. I'm like, okay, they're going to be boarding up windows. There's going to be issues, whatever. I want to focus on my life and what I can do, and I think, all the guys that are in bands and all the roadies and sound men and techs and lighting guys, and all the crew out there are dying for us just to roll out the carpet.
Dude,
and let's get going. I mean, look, the Rolling Stones, they're going to be 100. Let's get them going. I mean, I got tickets to every Stones show coming up. Let's go.
Right. Well, dude, if you ever, when all this is cleared up, you ever come through Chicago, hit us up. We'll try and catch a show or something.
Stop Bulls, stop Bears.
Oh yeah. Dude, we'll grab a hot dog and maybe catch a Cubs game.
Yeah. There you go. That's what we want.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. So, John, thanks for having me.
Dude.
Here at zZounds Live, coming to you live.
Yeah, baby. Alrighty, man. You have a good one.
All right, signing off. CLA.